It's the All Birdies No Bogeys podcast, your weekly disc golf analysis podcast right here on JomezPro. I'm your host, Brian Earhart. My co-host, Nate Perkins, joins me once again, and we have a special guest joining us for, I guess this is our regularly scheduled episode, but this is kind of a bonus episode. We're joined here now by the man behind TechDisc, Michael Sizemore. We are preparing not only for the USDGC and Throw Pink Championships, we are preparing for the US Distance Championships. And I know Michael Sizemore behind TechDisc is always there gathering data, and he's enlightened a lot of disc golfers all over the world about throwing and how we throw the disc. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's great to be here.
Talk about what you do at USDGC, at the distance competitions, and why you guys show up trying to gather so much information from these pros.
Yeah, so it's really been a team effort between us at TechDisc, Coach Chris, and the people running the event. And then I also have to shout out Josh and Mikey and the team at Overthrow Disc Golf for helping out. But we see this as one of the few times that we have the top talent in the world in one place, really trying to throw as hard as far as they can. And so it's just a golden opportunity to capture a little bit of data to help the rest of us understand what is that top tier talent doing to the disc. So before each player goes into the arena to take their actual throw, they're going to walk through the TechDisc booth, throw a couple of throws on the TechDisc. We're going to label their stats, label their throws, so that everybody at home can follow along and see who's throwing what kind of numbers, what kind of nose angle. And then at the end, we're going to compile it all together, and that data set will be released publicly, just like the past 2 years are released.
I love that. And it's no surprise. I have loved your product since it came out. We've talked so much over the years. You even did a segment with us when me and Perkins still had Tournament Central. Short-lived, but one of my favorite things that I got to do week to week. But over the years, I'm sure you as a data guy have gathered a lot of surprising information, and you've learned a lot of surprising things about disc golf and how we throw the disc. How has this journey been for you developing TechDisc? And then when you started getting the data, what has been some of the most enlightening things?
Yeah, it's been quite a trip. I mean, I've been disc golfing since basically 2005, which is a while ago now, as it turns out. But this started even before TechDisc for me. I got the chance to go to the 2022 Worlds in Emporia and take some speeds and rangefinder measurements out there. Since I'm in Kansas City, it was a quick drive, and just mapping out the speed versus distance showed some surprisingly consistent trends. Even though everybody throws a little differently, the wind was a little different for certain people, but there were still meaningful trends in that data. So that really lit a fire for all of us who were there to kind of understand what was going on a little bit deeper. So it's been really fun to see the progression of the sport as we start to get data. We start to understand what the top MPO, FPO speeds are. Even the short time that TechDisc has been around, that FPO speed has been pushed up and up. And it's just crazy to see the development on that side of the game. And I don't know if we saw, I think making the rounds on social media was a throw by Jasper Till that was 89.1 miles an hour. So I think maybe that MPO game is going to get pushed a little bit further as well. So it's a really exciting time to be gathering data and working with the community to understand what it means and how our sport is progressing.
So I do want to ask what it means and what have you found over time? There's so many things, even outside of the, 6 metrics that you show people publicly. You've been showing me little things in between that you're trying to calculate to figure out what makes a powerful thrower. What has been surprising in those in-between stats that you've been looking at?
So there are some hidden things that aren't totally captured by speed and spin, everything else. So if you just plot out everybody on a graph of speed versus distance, you'll find that the best fit line looks pretty good, but the outliers above and below that line are really interesting. So I'll never forget one of the outliers at Emporia Worlds was Garrett Gurthey. His distance was way above what you would have guessed just from his raw speed number itself. So there are definitely players like Double G who's have found a way to tune in their discs to probably tune in their speed, bump up their spin. so they can get the most distance, the most flight out of that disc. We've also been looking at the power in the backswing right up to the point of release, and we've started an effort to map that out. And that's one of the things we're working on in the background, is measuring that power, figuring out the right time range that it makes sense to calculate that power over, and then looking at who's got the most kinetic power relative to their speed and spin and distance, and what exactly that means. So I think last year the person who had the fastest speed, best distance, also had the most power, which wasn't super surprising. But as we walked down the leaderboard, there were a couple outliers in the power category as well, which is really interesting. And I can't say that we totally understand what that means yet, which is one of the most fun things.
There's a few stats that I want to get some clarification on. I have learned some stuff about disc golf through your simulators and through talking with people that use TechDisc a lot. Spin for a long time has been very misunderstood. And even me getting into the professional ranks and teaching clinics all over the country, I still misunderstood spin to a certain extent. What have you discovered about it through workshopping and building simulators out for the flight of a disc with spin?
So spin, I think this gets caught up in the language around disc stability as well, which is not necessarily helping anything. But I remember from coming up as a disc golfer, I always thought more spin made the disc turn over more. And that was when I tried to turn a disc over, I was really trying to impart a whole lot of pop at the end to get that spin to turn it over. And there's just no physical basis for that, unfortunately. So this more spin, basically it has more gyroscopic stability, which means it's going to resist turning in either direction more. So if you have a ton of spin on a disc, it's going to want to hold its angle, whatever that angle is, whether that's flat, anhyzer, hyzer. So effectively, if you have two players throwing, the same speed, but one with high spin, one with low spin, that low spin player's disc is going to flip over more in the beginning of the flight and then fade back harder at the end of the flight as well. And the person with more spin is just going to see a much more gradual, slower flip and a much more gradual, slower fade as well. And that's been one of the things that's been, I'd say, one of our highest customer service tickets, as people trying to wrestle with that concept. But once you play around in the simulator and just think through it physically, it really helps to understand it as gyroscopic stability.
Yeah, because the big thing for me was I thought that a higher spin rate was going to keep the disc moving forward longer. I thought it was going to give you just a little bit more distance at the end of the day. And at least on your simulator, and then talking to some people, it's not necessarily the case. Speed is kind of the be all end all when it comes to distance. Is that fully accurate?
That is, if I had to sum it down to one little bite-sized clip, I'd say, yeah, speed is the king. But there's so many variables. There's so many nuances. So when you say spin doesn't necessarily give you more distance, well, if you adjust the stability of your disc, it can, because it gives you the opportunity to throw more understable plastic. It turns over less, then fades back less as well. So it's going to help you maximize the distance potential of the speed that you have. But I would say by and large, distance is going to come from speed.
And then I got one last question before I kick it over to Perkins, because I know he's got a lot to ask as well. Me and Perkins love looking at these TechDisc stats. We both had a blast doing the Tournament Central segment while we were doing it. This throw from Jasper Till, 89 is insane. I can throw right about 500 feet on my best throw these days, and I'm throwing 68, 69. That's like the max for me these days. He threw 89 miles an hour, 1,500 RPM. That's decent for that speed. 5.7 degrees of wobble. So I'd love for you to kind of explain wobble to people, because I do lessons and sometimes use the TechDisc in them, and they're very concerned about that statistic, wobble.
So generally, I would say you probably shouldn't be too concerned unless it's really, really excessive. So I'll explain wobble real quick. I think we all know what it looks like, where the disc is wobbling off axis. We measure it by basically if it wobbles, the axis going through the disc traces out a cone. And the bigger that cone is, the bigger the wobble angle is. If
Ah.
it's spinning perfectly around its axis, then there's no cone traced out at all. So that's zero wobble. So I would say spin and wobble go together. If you're a high spin player, you probably have pretty low wobble because that spin tends to, again, clamp out any wobble really quickly. So I'd say if you're a high wobble thrower, you probably have something just mechanically incorrect in that last wrist pivot, just being farther off axis from your main arm axis, or you're just low spin and you don't have enough spin to kind of damp out the normal amounts of wobble. We have some of our guys on the team who are kind of keep wobble in the normal range for controlled speed shots, but when they try to push the speed on, especially a forehand, they can really tell that their wobble gets out of control. That's a good way for them to tell, yeah, I can hit that speed, but who knows where it's going to go? Because by the time that wobble settles out, my nose angle and hyzer could be almost anywhere.
So then last one going off of this, what are some typical wobble rates that you see with professional players when you track them versus when you go to amateur tournaments and track those?
We would typically see below 5 for professionals. And again, forehand can get a touch higher sometimes, but generally below 5 degrees of wobble is not really a problem. I do cringe a little bit. We'll see some on Reddit that show like a 25 degrees of wobble. That's too high. If anyone on Reddit is wondering, 25 is too high. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Perkins. I know you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
No, this is great. So many questions just arose right there. I think my first one is really to help our listeners out. Michael, when it comes to players that are really getting up there in the speed, passing 70 miles per hour, even into 80 miles per hour, what do you think form wise is the thing that they converge on the most in the throw?
That's a really good question. And that's something we'd like to answer more clearly in the future. I think we do look at some of the raw acceleration data of the backswing. And when we see some of the better players, we've seen Zach Nash a bunch of times because his spin is so exceptional. We spent a lot of time looking at his throw. We've looked at Gannon a lot, and we'll see their acceleration right before their release point is very sharp up to a peak. If you look at my acceleration, it's a pretty slow ramp up. But if you look at Zach Nash or Gannon or someone who's really hitting the upper 70s, 80s, you'll see typically a very, very sharp peak of in the acceleration of that disc, 15, 20, 25 milliseconds before the release point. So it's a big difference, but the difference occurs over just a couple of milliseconds. So it's a little bit tough to tease out.
Yeah. So my next question, Brian and I were talking last week about Paul Cran's. He made a great run at MVP and Green Mountain Championship, and you compare a guy like Paul Cran's to a guy like Gannon Burr, and there's just a massive physical difference between the two of those players, right? And from your experience and all the data that you've seen, all the different players that you've seen, is a guy like Paul Cran's at just a physics wise at a disadvantage compared to a guy like Gannon Burr because of the leverage and his wingspan?
So we really only measure what the disc is doing. I would have to say he's almost certainly at a disadvantage just with the length of the levers. I think almost everyone is probably at a disadvantage to Gannon when it comes to that.
Yeah, right.
And then the stats generally show it, but yeah, it's really impressive the stats he is able to put up with the build that he's got. And I know Brian and I've talked about trying to do a pound for pound, the most powerful thrower out there, and I think that's something that I would love to see done.
Yes.
Because even watching Nico a couple years back at USDGC, the numbers he put up were just phenomenal, and the distance he's able to get out is really impressive. So there's definitely something that he and Paul Cran's there's something they're doing right to really maximize the levers they do have.
Yeah, and the next thing is to touch on your point about Garrett Gurthey. I think that there's something that's in you can't calculate about the stability of a disc, right? And I think that that is what makes the distance competition still like you couldn't just figure it out with the stats, right? Who won the
Yeah.
competition because it's impossible to calculate exactly how much that disc weighed, how understable that boss was that he threw, and the specific wind at that moment, right? So I think that there's always going to be an intangible to these distance competitions, which is a beautiful part of our game that everyone has this like relationship to the equipment. And a player like Garrett Gurthey, he has a stronger relationship and knows how to make the disc go further. So I just think that's a fascinating part about our sport. And it kind of brings me into the next question for you is where do you see the future of kind of honing in these distance competitions and making it, almost a fair ball game? And as far as like world records go, how do we approach that? I know it's been some time since that record in the desert was thrown, but do you see a difference between an outdoor record and an indoor record?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think we would love to see some more effort put into, you know, basically a virtual distance record, because that would
Okay,
be basically the most
virtual.
fair environment that you could construct. Um, I'm not sure that's the most exciting one. I think there's a lot of all the intangibles you mentioned with the actual distance competition that we're going to see shortly. Um, that's way more exciting than a virtual disc golf competition would be, because you've got to understand the wind, the terrain there. It's downhill with trees lined on both sides, and so you've got players throwing massive high launch angles with incredibly low nose angles, which is just a totally unique shot. But I do think there's probably a place for a virtual distance competition. Um, I, I think TechDisc is pretty good at measuring people's ceilings, and it'd be really fun to see someone hit their max ceiling distance potential. But on the other side of that, I think the U.S. distance contest is great at measuring, your consistency. What can you actually hit when it's time to step on the tee and throw a distance shot? So I think they're both sides of a really fun coin.
Well, I want to jump in because let's look at this registration list that we have here. In the
Yeah.
morning, a lot of the tee times are uh, they're good players, but not as known. I do see in the early tee times Carter Aarons, who is extremely impressive. He's going out there. Jaden Rye can put the disc a long way. Lefties, Austin Turner's in the distance competition. And I think if lefties get the right wind, I almost won the 2013 World Distance Championships. I lost to Wiggins by like
Yeah,
6 feet
Brian.
because I had a little
That
bit
was good.
extra lefty wind and I caught one just right. So exciting to see what Austin does. Um, Nick Krush is on the list. I don't even think he's playing the tournament. This guy just trains distance. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. He trains a lot with TechDisc. Am I correct?
He does. Yeah, I think Nick Krush, Blitz, Mikey from Overthrow are really a really fun group to watch push their capabilities further and really measure how far they're pushing with TechDisc. So they've been really great coaches, and really helpful working with us on making TechDisc better, making sure that we can stand up to the fastest throws um, that anyone's ever seen. So it's fun to see them train specifically for distance, and then especially last year to see Mikey perform, um, and really put down a big distance shot and get into the finals. It's fun to see how far those guys can go.
Tell the story of Mikey, because I know a lot of people know Nick Krush, and if you follow Overthrow, you know who Mikey is. But his story is extremely impressive. Can you kind of elaborate? Because I know you work with him pretty closely.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize a little bit. I think he's got a couple great videos on it. So back when we first started Tech Disc, basically the first time that Mikey used it, he used it to get himself to 500 feet, and that was a massive breakthrough for him. And that was such a cool moment for us as well to see someone actually using our product to make themselves better. And then he just kept on pushing. I mean, they coach, all day, every day. They see a ton of fantastic players. So he's in a phenomenal position to really push himself farther. And he's also got some pretty long levers. He's a tall guy. But he just kept on pushing himself, and he made that U.S. distance contest last year his goal for that year. And so we get to see, whenever we check in on him, how many times he's throwing TechDisc. And he found the upper limit to how many times you can safely throw a TechDisc. So he had to learn what his pitch count was, so he could keep throwing safely, because it's a little easy to go beyond your limit. But I was really, really happy for him to have all that work throughout the years pay off last year. He put down a great throw in the qualifying and still did well in the finals. So it was a really impressive journey. And there's no guarantee that, you only get, is it 5 throws at the contest? So there's no guarantee that you're going to, get a hold of a good one. But he put down a couple of good ones, and really showed how much he'd been training.
How fast is he throwing now after all this training?
Oh, I'd have to check in with him again. I know he pushed himself pretty hard last year in preparation for it, and I expect he took some time off after it. But I'd have to go back to the data from last year and see. So he had a 79.8 mile an hour throw.
Wow.
He was on the TechDisc last year.
Smoking.
So that was up there.
Well, who's in the 80 mile per hour club right now?
Ooh, let me see. There's not many.
Like, we're talking less than 10?
Yeah, I think so. So I know David Wiggins Jr. is there.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jasper Till is there.
Anthony.
I think Krush is there as well. Anthony Barella, for sure. There's a small handful of people who were in the 80s, and they kind of span from 80 to 85. I think that Jasper Till 89.1 that he threw.
No 360.
And an uphill run up, it looked like. That may have been with the mid-range. So I want to double check with him and see what that was. But in either case, I wonder if he's not going to be breaking some speed records.
I want to shift real quick, because I've talked about this a lot recently. At what point are we going to start to see TechDisc data sent to us in the DGN booth during a tournament round? Is that ever going to be possible, Michael? And just please do it.
We would sure love to make it happen. I think we're pretty well situated to do it, but it's also a pretty tough problem. I know as a viewer myself, I'd love to see the shot tracers and the stats pop up live in real time. We're going to need a couple of standards changes and innovations in manufacturing before we make that happen. But I don't think it's impossible, and I'd love to be a part of the group making that happen.
What needs to change? What are the obstacles to make that happen? Where would the unit be as well?
So, I mean, selfishly, I'd love to embed it into the disc, because I think you can get so much more accurate data quickly when you're directly measuring. And fortunately, the disc golf throw is explosive, but the disc is big. And so the sensors that are available right now can handle that. So I'd love it to be in the disc. Then you could know exactly what disc someone picks out of their bag, exactly what they're throwing. And then I think even more fun is that backswing path before they throw. Would be really, really fun. So, but there's advancements in camera launch monitors. I don't think we've seen a radar launch monitor yet for disc golf. But I'm optimistic that'll happen at some point. So I think the future is ripe for innovation in the space. And that we'd all love to see it on the broadcast. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would love my job even more if I got to see an ace and then I got to know how the shot was thrown as it goes into the chains. That's a dream come true for me. And yeah, you know what, Michael, ever since I started talking to you about this product and your dreams, the optimism you have is just infectious, and we need more of that in disc golf. And the fact that you've been able to execute this is fantastic. Perks, I know I kind of hijacked your stream of questions, but I'm dreaming as well over here.
Yeah. No, that would be amazing to have it on Disc Golf Network. Yeah, I guess I'm just curious what you're excited about coming up with TechDisc, like what your next vision is.
Yeah, I'm really excited to build out our 3D simulator a lot more. Um, we've got a ton of great features planned for it. We just debuted a CTP feature at Maple Hill last week. So we're excited to get that out into people's hands. I think it's going to be really fun for people to go to a store or their friend's house and try it out and just compete even in the wintertime. It's going to be a blast. But beyond that, our video capture feature, which if people haven't heard about, you basically just use your phone to point at you as you throw, and then it automatically captures a video of you and clips it, does the slow-mo, everything. There's a lot of opportunities there. That's a feature that people have really grabbed onto and are really enjoying it. I think it's one of the best ways if you're serious about getting better at disc golf. That's one of the features that you need to look into. We've got big opportunities to really highlight where and when you're accelerating and what are players who are better than you, what are they doing that you're not doing. So we try to stay away from coaching too much, try to be mostly a neutral measurement tool. But even being a neutral measurement tool, I think there's still lots of opportunities to do some A/B comparisons and really help people speed up their progress.
Well, Michael, before I let you go, this is my final question for you. We look in the afternoon and we see a lot of big time players. FPO, we got Paige, Holland, Hannah Blomroos, Ellie Midling, Ella Hansen, Taylor Chosek, who won last year. In the MPO, it's super stacked in the afternoon. Babcock, both Robinson brothers, Zach Nash, Ezra, Gannon Burr, Silas, Adam Hammis, Rasmus Saukaripi, the world distance champion, Simon, Anthony Barella, Jasper Till. Who of these players has blown your mind the most, whether it's just seeing them throw in person or from some of the stats that they've given you?
So I'll give you one FPO, one MPO. I think Taylor Chosek on FPO has been mind-blowing when it comes to speed. I think she's been just incredible pushing the what we thought was possible in FPO further and further. I mean, between Ella and Eliezra, Taylor added a couple extra miles per hour on top of them, which was already
Wow,
incredible. So it'll
shocking.
be really interesting to see if she can hone in the rest of those stats. I think especially nose angle and put down some good distance lines, um, because I think she's got a big speed advantage over the other players if she puts it all together. On the MPO side, I'm really excited about Rasmus actually. Um, I'm pretty sure 2 years ago he had my favorite shot, um, going super high over the trees, which with some incredible nose down. Um, just the amount of hang time he was able to get on that disc, it seemed like he really knew his disc extremely well and was able to control his metrics to get the most out of that disc. Um, so I would love to see him put down some really big numbers. But honestly, everybody uh, in the later tee times there is capable of some really special stuff. So I'm not sure I could pick one favorite, but I'll definitely be watching when Rasmus steps up.
Same here. I watched him throw off T1 at Maple Hill, and people were just laughing. They just started cracking up because they had never seen something like that in person before. Paul McBeth comes up and is laughing at me. He's like, "Oh, what was that? A Firebird? A mid range? What was that?" The dude is a freak. But anyway, thank you, Michael Perkins. Anything else that you have before we let him go?
Well, touching on Rasmus, is he still the king of the forehand as well, Michael?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head. The last forehand stat that I kept on the top of my head was Gannon's forehand spin at over 1,000 RPMs. Um, but I'm not sure. I'll have to keep
Eleven
an eye on
hundred.
that. Hmm.
And is there just
Yeah.
like, is there a live database that you have access to that, if someone's, throwing over in Finland with the tech disc, it's just like, oh, new leader on the leaderboard on your site. You get a
We
notification.
we do check on that once in a while. We really prefer to have video evidence when that happens.
Okay.
Um, and you also got to check, was it done with a putter or a mid range? Because at those high speeds, these things matter. But no, I think that all the people who are throwing tomorrow are in the tops of speed for sure.
Can't wait.
Well, Michael, thank you so much. I'm sure this is not the last time we'll have you on the show. Yeah, thank you for everything that you're doing for disc golf. I think it's so awesome. We'll see you out there at the Distance Championships tomorrow. And yeah, safe travels out there.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. I can't wait.
And another great conversation is complete. Again, we are recording this on Sunday night before the week of USDGC. The distance competition is, in fact, tomorrow as of the time of recording, but you're probably going to be listening to it after you find out who the winner is. But again, in general, TechDisc it's kind of timeless. I think it's one of the coolest things that we've ever seen in disc golf. He did not pay us for this spot. Maybe one day we call this the TechDisc show, but not yet. This is just pure love for Michael and what he's doing. Nate, what do you make of that conversation?
Yeah, I think what they've done is just add a ton of credibility to the intricacies of the disc golf throw, right? I've always felt like of all the sports that I've been a part of and witnessed firsthand, I've always felt like a premium backhand disc golf throw is like one of the most athletic movements that I've ever seen. And I think one day the world's gonna also see that. And I think Tech Disc is just kind of unpacking that a bit and just how incredible it is, how much timing it takes, how much athleticism it takes to really reach those insane numbers. And then yeah, just what he talked about with Girthy's throw, I think is really special because it really there's a whole world there, right? Of you've always talked about it, right? The relationship to the equipment, right? There's not a lot of sports where people have such different equipment, right? All the MLB pitchers, it's the same ball, like same tennis balls, it's same pigskin, it's all very similar, and yet disc golf, everyone's discs that they're using for these distance comps are just vastly different, and that's an intangible, and that's why Jasper Till might be throwing 89, but he's not guaranteed to win the tournament because every throw is different, every disc is different. So it's pretty cool, and I do like the thought of a virtual competition, but I want to see what the future of distance really is, right? Because I want to see the indoor record, and then I want to see like the wind assisted record.
100%. The other thing is, I want to see a tour. I want to see a distance tour. We did match play this year. Let's just do a distance tour. I don't care. I think it would be awesome, and different terrain too. Let us throw off a giant cliff, not a cliff, but like, what I'm talking about, huge downhill shot, and measure the distance there. Maybe we throw on flat ground one day. Maybe we have a big headwind one day. I love the variance in distances. Sometimes you get a winner that throws 550. Sometimes you get a winner that throws 720.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. But the thing I like about the virtual is that you have to go into the app and design a disc to your specifications. So you're going into the simulator with flight numbers that you've specifically curated to the way that you like to throw the
Oh,
disc. And I love that.
interesting.
And you
Interesting.
get to name the disc, Nate. And I don't know. I think it would be funny to see somebody in the virtual distance competition with a disc called Lil Bluey, something like that. I don't know. I think it would be a
15
great
glide.
competition. Yeah, well, no, he has parameters. So I think the
Okay.
highest is like 14. The highest glide, I think, is like 6. But going into the competition, you can say the max is 14. The max glide you can set as 5. And then when it comes to like turn and fade, they're kind of tied together. You can't just set -20 turn and 85 fade. It's all tied to itself. So, yeah, really realistic. And I think it would be a great competition. So, yeah, we got his approval. So we're good to go, Nate.
That's man, I can't wait to do some more stuff with him. He's a genius. You can tell he's really tapped in. And are you going to the distance competition tomorrow?
If the car situation lines up, I'm there. My household
Okay.
has one vehicle right now, and then AJ Risley's staying
No.
with us, and he's filming the distance competition. I also have a couple of big interviews. I have 2 catch episodes to prep for. But my answer is
where's your cars at?
99% yes. Lindsay has to take it to work, so it's like
Okay. And the
yeah.
Subi's out of commission or what?
Subi's out of commission right now. Yeah, it's
Oh
it needs
no.
a new
What's going
battery, and
on?
then it's bleeding some gas a little bit. So I think there's
Oh
a leak
no.
that we have to address. Yep, taking
That's
it
not
into the
good.
shop next week. All good though. We're gonna get there, and yeah, it's gonna be a fantastic week. So much going on. You're gonna be on course. I'm just gonna be out there taking interviews all day. At least
Okay.
that's what it says. Um, but Nate,
It's
we
gonna
got
be
to make
fun.
the announcement right now. This is a bonus episode because the actual USDGC Throw Pink preview is going to be live, baby.
It's going live. Going
Wednesday
live.
night, 6 p.m. Eastern time at my house. Nate Perkins is going to be sitting, right here. He's sitting right next to me in the flesh. It's going to be a great show. We're going to prep the tournament for you, get you all ready to go. We're going to have the live chat going on the YouTube channel here on Jomez. Nate, any closing words for the people?
Can't wait. This is a tournament that I think everyone in the community of disc golf looks forward to every week, and can't wait to get back out to the East Coast and feel it. What's it like? What's it going to be like this week? We're looking at some sunshine, Brian. How is it over there?
We're going to have rain Wednesday and Thursday, and then the rest of the weekend looks clear.
Great. That's always USDGC is one of those courses, Winthrop rather, is one of those courses where it feels like every year it's just going to get shredded and the par is going to get lower and lower, and yet there's always something that goes down. There's always some variable that no one expected. I mean, the year that Conrad won, 19 under par for a 4-round tournament, and one year Yuli shot better than 40 and didn't win the tournament. So it's just unpredictable, and obviously we're going to unpack it a bit more on Wednesday, but I just can't wait to get back over there and experience disc golf again.
Well, let us know what you think about these TechDisc / distance competition oriented bonus episodes. I have no problem doing one every now and then and bringing Michael back on to talk about disc golf when it comes to the nerdy side of things. Maybe bring on some coaches. Nate has a few people in mind, and just talk about disc golf form. abnbpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you want to see in some of these bonus episodes. More of these are on the way. Nate, I'm going to wrap things up here. We got the live show on Wednesday, and we got to get some rest. You got to get out here.
Yep. I'll see you Tuesday, Brian.
I'll see you Tuesday. And you know what, folks? We'll see you Wednesday. Bye-bye.